Well, Phillip, thanks for being with us today. If we could start, just to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you've been up to lately.
My name is Phillip Holsinger, and I'm a freelance photojournalist. I've been in Haiti helping to set up a network for distributing shelter, which is sort of the second tier of need right now in Haiti for earthquake victims. Because, as you know, there are hundreds of thousands of people that literally don't even have a tree to sleep under. They're living under sheets, with sticks.
And what kind of shelters are you able to provide for them right now?
Tents. They're mobile. They're easy. People pack them up and carry them with them. 4-man tents is what we're shooting for. You can get literally like 8 to 10 people will literally crowd into these and sleep in them.
Wow. Now I know that in the last couple of weeks you've been to Haiti 2 times, 3 times?
2 times.
Twice. And you've been there very early on since the earthquakes hit, and you've seen some of the rubble and people face to face. Share with us a little bit about, in short, that experience of just what it was like for you as a Christian to be there and to see so much devastation.
Well, as you know, Haiti isn't new to me. It's where I've been making a home, kind of. I travel all the time. But it's been kind of a home for me off and on for the last 4 years. So I have a relationship with Haiti before the quake, and I will continue to. So in part it was kind of like seeing your own home kind of smashed, When you see anything broken, it's kind of shocking. When I got to Haiti, I wasn't prepared for the devastation. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Whole mountainsides of houses crumble, And when you look at them, you understand that there's no way anybody can recover any human bodies out of those places. There are no roads to get cranes in, it's just a mountainside, So it's pretty overwhelming to see that,
And I'm sure that when you see so much destruction and devastation, lots of questions race through your head, just as they would most people. In our class, World Christian, one of the questions we address at different points in the semester, but especially in one of our modules, is what happens, why does suffering happen? Why do bad things happen to good people? And the question I would like you to respond to now with your Haiti context is, where is God when this catastrophe strikes?
I'm going to tell you a few stories. Some of this you know, maybe some of it you don't, and I don't know what all will be appropriate for class, but I hope it's all appropriate because it's all true. As you know, I became, pardon my throat, committed to following Christ just some few years ago, 2003 really at the end, although I'd had this sort of in and out faith all my life, but I came to a place of decision and was baptized and made this commitment, and my life began to change. And as you know, I quit my job as a photojournalist and I moved to Haiti, and that was in 2006. In 2008, what you may not know is I had a breakdown. It may have even been a nervous breakdown, I'm not sure, but it was right here in Searcy, Arkansas, and I don't know, I'm very tired because I just got back from Haiti, so I'm still a little emotional. Monty Cox was with me through this breakdown. I'd been working in Haiti, a person who had become a follower of Jesus, and I believed in Jesus. I was working in Haiti, and I just started losing faith because I could not understand. I mean, my mind is very mathematical, and I just began to think, none of this adds up. How could there be a God that would create the possibility of such suffering? And it led me to a crisis point in a little parking lot here at Harding University where I literally broke down. A friend was talking to me about God and this and that, and I just shook my fist at heaven. And I said, I don't want to believe in you anymore. I don't want to believe in you because this doesn't make sense. And in my mind, I didn't believe in God. I've always struggled a bit with atheism, And I just bawled my eyes out. And it was weird. All this stuff from my own past came back. My brother had committed suicide, and I started talking to God like a person, I'm not like Job. I don't have a righteous life, but I was speaking to God as if I, were Job, and I was saying, where were you when my brother took his life, you know?
Mm.
So Monty really counseled me through a lot of this. We talked, and you know, the weeks that followed, and I don't know what changed, but something began to change in my heart. And again, there was no light moment or whatever, but I began to see the world a little bit differently, and I'm not sure what. It was like the mercy of God. Just, there were no answers that came to. And I'm not even sure what happened over those last, 2 years. But I know that when I went back to Haiti, I read the book of Job a lot, and I have lots of thoughts all the time. But I had an experience in the field, and I share it with you. I'll share it with you again. And it was, we were, in this horrible, you can imagine where we are in Haiti, and the carnage is, you can't imagine that. And we were in a border clinic, hospital, whatever you want to call it. They converted this brand new orphanage into a makeshift hospital. It was like a hotel, open air hotel. They'd never used it before, big balconies. And all these people were in it that they'd flown from, from Port-au-Prince. Mm-hmm. And a tremor took place. And, we're 100 miles away from Port-au-Prince or something, and it felt like the building was going to fall down. I was in another building. And people started throwing themselves off the balconies. They were so terrified the building was going to collapse. Well, that's a whole other story. All this chaos ensued, and I ran into this milieu and, started to shoot, and then realized, people had to be rescued. So threw my cameras down, and we all ran in the building, started pulling people out. After all this settled down, and it's like I don't know, past midnight, and the whole hospital had moved out into the field, and the doctors, man, those doctors were working 36-hour shifts, and, from all over the world. So the hospital was now created in the field. It was like summer camp of misery, wailing people and IVs sticking up out everywhere. And there was nothing I could do, and I sat down with this little family, kind of huddled around this little girl. And I hope I'm not being too long-winded, but I just felt useless, and I just started praying, I started thinking about my own breakdown a few years before, and I started going, God, what are the people here thinking about you? What questions are they asking you? They just leapt off of balconies, some really seriously injuring themselves again, What are they thinking about you? And so I'm sitting with this little girl who turned out to be 14, my daughter's age, and her family, and they're looking at my iPhone and looking at pictures. And they come across a picture of a little girl in Nicaragua that I photographed for another documentary. And her name is Nellie. And Nellie was raped at the age of 12 by her stepfather, thrown out of their house in disgrace, put into a woman's home to have this baby. And Nellie became a Christian there with Benny Baker, the Church of Christ Mission there, like a real Christian, and is a leader of youth now at the age of 17. And I thought about her, and this thought occurred to me, and it came out of the sky. I don't know if it's any truth to it or what, if it's just my crazy imagination. But I learned something from the thought. And I told the girl, I said, I don't know what you think about God, or if you know Jesus or believe in him or whatever. I said, but a thought occurs to me, and I told her Nellie's story. And I said, I think that you and Nellie have something very special with Jesus, because you and Nellie, when you talk to Jesus, understand about your broken body. This little girl's laying there with big pins sticking out of her leg, And I said, I think that you know, and Jesus knows, something that I just don't know. You have an intimacy I don't. And I started thinking about the Bible and all the things we're told that we don't really believe. We want answers. And Jesus says, if you're going to follow me, the road is narrow. Take up your cross and follow me. So he says to me, Phillip, He says, where I go, it's a place that, you're going to suffer. People will ridicule you. The first shall be last, and the last shall be first. But we don't like that, We don't want to understand that. And so I look at Haiti, and I stood beside this Lutheran pastor that same night, and he was kind of saying these things to me. He says, we want to believe that there are answers, but maybe Haiti has something to teach us, not so much that we have something to teach Haiti. Maybe when we're broken, that we're given the opportunity to see, you know, what we really need, which is to get right in our spirit, you know, because that's the eternal part of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to be a preacher here, but I don't have an answer, but I think about the book of Job, because everybody wants to talk about the book of Job when they talk about suffering. And I think we should teach that in our classes more, because the book of Job is this great book that doesn't offer an answer. Righteous guy is tortured, essentially, by the evil one. And his smart friends and all their earthly wisdom know the answer. You had to have done something wrong. Cause and effect. If you're good, you get good. If you're bad, it's bad. Life has to make sense. But Job in his heart knows, man, I didn't do anything wrong. I don't think. Tell me, God, why?
Mm.
And God's answer is a rhetorical question.
Mm-hmm.
And his rhetorical question is the answer in that question by asking Job all these intimate questions about nature, I think, is God saying, I am not unacquainted with your suffering, my son. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what I felt in that field that night. I felt like I learned something because I felt like my broken heart, again, I don't need to be so emotional, but I felt like my broken heart, from all my sin and everything, I felt understood by God by being amid that suffering and feeling my own suffering. And I'm not saying I like it or that I think it's a good thing that happens in the world by any measure. But I'm saying that what's different now, today in 2010, than it was for me in 2008, is I'm not trying to sum it up in an answer that I can teach people about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to obey and let God lead me through my own sort of shadow, you know, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
Anyway, that's my story and my sort of kind of explanation.
Sure. I've got one more question, and that is, you mentioned cause and effect, and I think human beings are still looking for cause and effect relationships. Our worldview is much different than the worldview of Job and his friends. In fact, in some ways, we are the opposite. They were trying to spiritualize physical catastrophes. We tend to secularize everything that happens, removing God from that scene. So for some people, the answer to where is God when I suffer, it is God's not there, it's not his fault, it's sin's fault, not God's fault. I sense a fundamental danger in removing God from catastrophe. But I'm curious what your response would be to that. What do you see any dangers in removing God and secularizing everything that's bad, or do you think that's perhaps a proper response to remove God from the catastrophes?
No, I don't think it's proper. And these are dangerous waters to begin to speak in, because it's like a high mathematical problem that only God really can solve or understand. I've heard about some religious fanatic, I'll say that, maybe that's unfair to say, but a religious leader, whatever, saying something about Haiti and the devil and Haiti kind of deserving. I haven't heard the speech of this man, but I've heard lots of people talking about it. And of course I dismiss that a nation is being punished by something, because God knows we're a sinful nation too. You know, we are as sinful as Haiti. I mean, Haiti does blood sacrifices, but so do we, and the way we treat our employees, and it goes on. So I don't think there's any stock in that. But this is God's world. And God allows this world to be the way it is. We often just say, well, sin entered the world, and that's the bad in the world, you know. But I'll tell you this. I've had my life injured, and I believe God allowed it to happen. He may have even orchestrated it to save my soul. Some people may not like that line of thinking. But if God has to crush mountains, you know, to save our lives, then I mean, he knows better than we do. So I think that there's a real danger in just saying that this is sin that sort of activated the destruction of the world, that plants live and die and all that. I mean, you know, I don't like like the idea of removing God from that. I mean, I don't know why God allows things like in Haiti to happen, but I don't know why God allows my brother to have had a mental illness that he would take his life. You know, that why God would allow the chemistry of the human body. That brings us back to that sort of 2008 discussion that I have with myself, asking God, why would you allow evil in the world? The question's wrong in my book.
Mm-hmm.
Part of me saying yes to Jesus is me surrendering my need to him. You know, I mean, that's part of me waking up to what is it to be a Christian, and it is to obey. And again, you know me, I'm not some blind goat. I mean, I fight everything. But following Christ has something to do with relinquishing, and I kind of got to just accept that somehow God is in this mix. That this is God's world, that he allows floods to come and, you know, these things to happen. I keep telling people, I meet so many aid workers, so many Christian aid workers, trying to save the world. And man, it's weird coming out of my mouth, because I sound like I'm becoming way ultra-conservative. But I'm not in Haiti to save Haiti, you know. And I hope to put lots of babies in tents, man, because I don't want them having cholera. But that's not the ultimate goal. I mean, Colossians says that my motive must be only to please my Lord. That must be my motive. My work is unto Christ himself, you know, that God will be glorified. And part of that glorifying him is that babies and widows be taken care of, you know, that pleases him. But the goal is to please him and to be able to be in a position where his love can bring others to him, you know. The human aid is not the goal. And so when we're in Haiti dealing with all this massive destruction, it becomes this opportunity of letting ourselves practice that thing, if that makes sense. But that's what we practice right here. Like every day is that opportunity, you know. I'm being philosophical now, but
That's very helpful. And thank you for sharing your story with us. I think this gives us plenty of food for thought and something to talk about in our online class. Thank you very much, Phillip.
all right, thanks.